Okay, we're about a minute after 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Art Devereaux. I'm a Director of Quality Assurance here with Sonera Technologies, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today on how organizations are leveraging automated testing as part of their COVID-19 business continuity strategy. We do appreciate you taking the time from your day to join us and listen in to hear more about what we have to say. Leading today's call is going to be Lavanya Salagundola. She is the head of testing engineering at Sonera Technologies, and she'll be leading the webinar today. So with that, Lavanya, I pass it over to you.
Thank you, Art. Thanks everyone for joining. As Art mentioned, we will try to cover how a lot of different organizations are dealing with this whole unprecedented time that we are living in today. I was just looking at some articles and found this on Forbes that talks about what are the different phases of the pandemic that businesses can expect. Phase one, we're already in, awaiting on the impacts and how businesses are adopting to it, adjusting to it, working remotely. Some folks are having to support multiple things. The phase two would be withstanding the initial impact and then returning to normalcy. But then is there going to be the same normalcy as we used to live before versus how the new dynamics are going to be, both from B2C and B2B standpoint, and how companies are having to deal with the new normal and adopt to changes, right? So I'll give you an example. We've been talking to one of our recent customers who joined us, and they were implementing Oracle Cloud applications, planning to go live in July. They were implementing across multiple countries, and the initial plan was for them to bring all the users from different countries into the States to train them and then leverage them to do UAT testing in May and then roll it out in June-July timeframe. But unfortunately, with this COVID-19 situation coming in, they are not able to have people travel, which means everybody is at different distributed locations, and the whole initial plan of their rollout got impacted because of this. So we started talking to them, and we started talking on April 2nd, and by April 10th, we came into an agreement that we will leverage automated testing to do their UAT support across different locations that they have. And then their users can focus more on training and understanding the application instead of focusing on testing, right? So that's, they had to shift their strategy within a short period of time. And now the UAT starting next week, we were able to get them up and running with the whole automated testing of all the UAT test scenarios, and are planning to leverage that across their rollouts, right? So it's a lot of companies are having to adopt to these new circumstances, and so especially customers who are on the cloud. If you have either implemented cloud or planning to go to cloud, obviously that comes with different sets of benefits, like you're getting continuous delivery and innovation, you're getting new features faster, this predictable schedule and all that. But with that comes new responsibilities as well, because especially in circumstances like this, when you're getting continuous delivery, you need to keep up with the changes that are coming in at faster rate than on your on-prem systems, right? So on on-prem systems, you control everything. You've got, you can decide what goes into a release, and if there are impacts, if you don't have enough team members to support, you are able to, put off certain things, right? But with cloud, you get more faster releases. It's been determined by your cloud provider. You get new features and functionality. But what's important is you need to continuously validate to make sure that your business critical processes are still continuing to work. Even if you don't adopt new features, you should still have to make sure that whatever changes are coming in are not impacting your business critical processes, right? So continuously having the ability to test and validate is important. Otherwise, it creates some challenges for you. right? So we talk about the change management process. So if you're getting monthly, quarterly updates, whether it's your on-prem systems, cloud systems, when you're getting continuous updates and you have your business critical processes like your procure to pay, order to cash, payroll processes, benefits, anything that are critical for your organization need to still continue to work, right? And these changes, whether it's coming from your cloud provider or if there might be other integrations, your upstream, downstream systems might make some changes, and that might have a downline impact on your application. And if you don't continuously validate it, and if your critical business processes don't work, that's going to cause more problems. And especially for cloud customers, not having backward compatibility and no rollback option is something to consider from a change management process, because if things get pushed and then you haven't done enough validation and then things break, you've got to live with that for a while, and that causes a lot more challenges, especially in these circumstances where you don't have a lot of bandwidth to support ongoing fires if it goes into production, right? So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind, whether you're on cloud, whether you're on-prem, or whether you're in the process of transitioning into the cloud. So how can automation help with this process, right? So like I gave an example, during implementation, we were able to support one of our customers during UAT. But let's say that you are already in production and you are having to adapt to these changes faster. So automation provides you the agility to adapt to these changes. It doesn't impact your team's ability to ensure that everything can go into production without any issues. Distributed teams will not be an issue, because one of the things that we are hearing from our customers as a challenge is that teams used to work hand in hand, both IT and business teams, during release validations, and that used to help quite a bit in terms of end-to-end testing. You're testing from the whole end-to-end process, whether it's procure to pay or order to cash, but there's a lot of teams involved and a lot of handoffs happening, and the teams distributed, that's becoming a bit of a challenge to coordinate that and get this done in a timely manner. But with automation in place, you can do no-touch, end-to-end automated testing of these key processes. So that gives you a lot of agility in adapting to this kind of changes, not only today, but as changes are coming into our new reality post the situation, could require you to leverage more automation versus doing things manually. The second one is predictability. If you have all your business critical processes automated, even if you don't have a complete regression feed, but at least the whole business critical processes that absolutely have to work for your business to succeed, then with automation gives you predictability, because you can run these tests as frequently as possible, whether the changes are coming in because something that your team has made, something some third party has made, some tax updates came in which requires you to do some testing, or your cloud provider is pushing their quarterly, monthly updates that requires you to do to make sure that key processes are continued to work. You can get some predictability in terms of making sure that you can go into production with a lot more confidence. So the quality of the rollouts are going to be better with automation in place. It also frees up your key personnel to focus more on business critical tasks versus doing testing, which really does not add much value to your from a business team standpoint, right? So with automation in place, you can actually focus more on critical things that are important for the organization. You can also focus on, if you have time, to look at new features that are getting pushed. Can those new features help your business in these times that we are living in, and how can you adopt those? So you can actually focus on things that add value versus doing testing. And last but not the least, obviously automation would lower costs. Things that you're doing manually, you can do it for 1/5 of the cost with automation. So that helps from, again, saving the money to do things that would be more important for the business versus putting it on doing things that are not adding any value to your organization. Right. So those are some of the key areas that would be brought to bear when you leverage automation. And the recommendation is that you start with business critical processes, because those are absolutely critical for your organization to run. And then you can expand the same into other areas, like creating a more better regression suite, so that you're actually handling things, running the tests to make sure nothing's broken when things go into production that you have to live with, right? So those are the few things that you should consider. I want to talk about a customer case study on a customer who actually has undertaken a cloud journey and have now implemented all their HR systems, ERP systems, and supply chain into the cloud. This is a medical research and drug development company out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. So for this organization, they have undertaken the automation journey, so that they wanted to leverage automation anytime there is a release that comes in. For this organization, all these modules have been automated, and every time there is a release that comes in, we follow this 5-step process. We do an automated impact analysis of the changes coming in to figure out how these changes are impacting the customer's implementation. We update the automated tests and execute those tests within 2 to 5 business days of the test pod getting updated. Also perform auto health checks to make sure there are no security breakdowns, or there are no process slowdowns that are happening because of the changes that have been applied. After you find any issues, retesting those issues, making sure everything is looking good, and then getting the sign-off. So this whole end-to-end process, this 5-step process, makes testing a non-event for this particular customer, because they don't have to worry really about doing testing every time there is a release that is coming in. Their team can focus more on other important tasks that are adding value to the organization. So what are the benefits that this customer has realized by leveraging automation? One is, proactively they're getting impact analysis of the updates that are coming in. They don't have to go read the release notes, understand what is coming in the release notes, and then figuring out what to test and what not. All that is automatically done, and an impact analysis report is generated, so that they could just know what is changing, so that they can be prepared to understand the changes. The whole testing is being done through automation, so they don't have to worry about doing the testing themselves. All this updates and testing are done within 5 business days. So for Oracle customers, especially, as you guys know, you get 2 weeks to do the whole quarterly patch updates, testing, and retesting and whatnot. With us completing it within the first 5 business days, you get a lot of time to get issues resolved and retest and go into production confidently. We also freed up key personnel to focus on business critical tasks. In terms of test coverage, previously it was more pick and choose testing that the customer was doing, more risk-based testing based on the release notes. But now we do complete 100% coverage of the regression suite that enables us to ensure that there are not going to be any defect leakages that are P1, P2 issues that are going into production. Last but not the least, this customer also has the ability to adopt new features and functionality much faster if they want to adopt new things that are coming in, versus putting it off indefinitely because you don't have time to do the evaluation of these new features. So I'm going to quickly jump into the CloudTestr platform that is actually supporting a lot of these customers with this automated release validation. So CloudTestr is an enterprise platform that supports all different types of applications. It's not just cloud applications, different types of cloud applications, whether it's Oracle, Salesforce, Workday. It supports all different types of SaaS applications, as well as on-prem applications, whether it's Oracle e-business suite or PeopleSoft or SAP. So we do support on-prem systems as well as any custom applications. It also supports integrations, different types of integrations that you might have, inbound, outbound integrations, whether it's API-based, file-based, point-to-point, all different types of integration layers like Dell Boomi or OIC, MuleSoft. So we do support all different types of integrations to ensure that you're not just doing functional regression testing, you're also doing integrations testing to make sure that the data is flowing appropriately. And you can also do end-to-end testing without any manual intervention. So you can actually run a whole procure-to-pay process without having, us intervening in between. So we can have the output of the first test case as input to the next test case and so on and so forth. So we're kind of doing an end-to-end process testing that usually is done by multiple teams with a lot of coordination, and so all that can be done without any manual intervention through the platform. It also supports transaction level performance testing to identify any process slowdowns that are happening, as well as any security testing. If you have any custom roles, standard roles, making sure that there are no security breakdowns that are happening when any patch updates are being applied. The platform is provided as a service, so you'll have access to the platform where you can log in, look at the dashboards, metrics, and all that. You can download the documentation, you can download the results files. All that is available to you by logging into the platform. And however, we provide it as a service where you can actually take advantage of us onboarding you to automation, maintaining and executing these tests. Right. So we have hundreds of pre-built libraries for a lot of ERP applications, including Oracle Cloud applications, Oracle EBS, SAP, and others. Right. The platform itself is hosted on the cloud. We do have flexibility to host it on-prem as well if customers desire, but most of the customers, we do host it on the cloud, secure Oracle public cloud infrastructure. It is a scriptless solution. What I mean by that is we really don't write any code. We capture and configure a transaction, and the platform auto generates the code for us. And in terms of onboarding a customer, if it is just business critical processes, we are able to onboard customers in 2 weeks after signing with us. If you want a complete coverage, complete regression suite, we can onboard you within 6 weeks of signing up with us. And in terms of actual maintenance and execution, we can do it within 2 to 5 business days. So if it is just business critical processes, we can actually update and execute these tests within 2 days. If it is, the larger set, we can do it within 5 business days. Right? So it helps you with accelerated onboarding of automation that you can start using it pretty quickly. Right? So that's something that if you have to implement automation on your own, it would require you to set up the framework, get people who actually know how to use that particular framework. And even if you do all that and then you automate it, maintenance has been a big problem for a lot of our customers to keep up with the automation, and more or less the automated tool becomes a shelfware, because if you don't maintain it, then over a period of time you fall back into doing things manually, right? So that's something that will not happen with this, because we are able to automate, maintain, and execute these tests as part of the service for you, and we can do it in a very accelerated fashion. So let me quickly show a demo. You can actually see it in action. So this is the CloudTestr login page. When you log into the platform, we will set up your organization's applications and modules. So when you log into the dashboard, you can actually see your own applications list. So if you look at it here, you can see the list of applications from a test case development standpoint, what's planned to be automated, how many test cases have been completed from an automation standpoint, how many are reviewed and signed off, how many are still in progress. You can even drill down further into this to take a look at, hey, for core HR, I want to see what is the status of my automation, how many have been completed, how many are still progress, all that drill down you could do on your own by going into the dashboard. You can do the same thing for test case executions as well. If you look at it, you can see how many test cases are planned to be executed, how many have been executed, passed, failed, yet to execute, and all during the release. You can even actually filter by a release as well to see release specific execution statuses as well. And even here you can drill down to go to see if test cases, what test cases have been executed and passed, and get the results files from there. Same thing with the defects. You can get your defect stats as well here. We can also integrate with your test management tools such as Jira or ALM and all if you expose the APIs to us, so that you can get the defects transferred into your test management tool as well. I'm going to pull up a quick test case, sample test case. So this is hire an employee test case for Oracle Cloud. In principle, CloudTestr works similarly across applications. So I'm showing you an example of Oracle Cloud. If it is Oracle eBiz or PeopleSoft or other applications, it would principally work the same way. We do capture and configure a transaction, and while we are capturing the transaction, we capture it for a customer implementation, right? We are not just doing any base vanilla scenarios. We're capturing as to how you have implemented it, what kind of configurations you have done, what kind of personalizations you have done for cloud applications, and if it's on-prem, what kind of customizations that you have. So we do capture those to ensure that if something breaks, we are actually capturing for how you have implemented it versus any vanilla scenarios that are available. So as part of the capture configure process, we do take screenshots that enables us to auto-generate the test documentation. So if you look at it here, I can actually download this documentation. That is pretty detailed. So if you see, you have the step that you're performing and the screenshot associated with that step. And all this is configurable as well in terms of the description, the step definition. We can put as much detail as possible and then auto-generate the documentation, right? So your documentation is never going to go stale because you're always keeping the documentation up to date. And that's one way of preventing, folks who do the testing but don't update the documentation, and over a period of time, your documentation will not be updated. And if that person leaves, then nobody knows what has changed in the past 6 months, 1 year. Right, so you will not run into that kind of a problem. You can also use this documentation for training purposes, because if you look at it, it's pretty detailed. You've got the steps in the screenshots, and if somebody wants to learn how hire an employee process works, you could just download this PDF and share it with them, and they can go through the process to learn how it works. The other benefit of taking the screenshots is with the test results. So even with the test results, you can actually get a pretty detailed view of the test results. What is the overall status of the test, where we executed it, how long it took to execute. Then failed steps, those are upfront shown here with a screenshot, so you don't have to scroll through the whole thing. And then you have, again, detailed screenshot and the steps, whether they passed or failed. Right? So you can even download the results file. So all these things you can do by logging into the platform on your own. You can look at the dashboards metrics on your own. You can download the documentation. You can download the results files. Right? All that is available to you at your fingertips. As you see, you have the screenshot, you have the step, we have the status. Right? So it's pretty detailed. Even if your teams are not executing the test, they could still validate them to make sure that everything is looking good. Without having to spend time actually doing the execution themselves. Right. If we talked about performance level transactions, we also measure how long it takes for each test to run every time we run it. And if there is any degradation in performance, we are able to clock it and notify a customer saying that there seems to be a performance degradation from the previous release to this release. So that's one way of identifying issues from a performance standpoint. We also do automated data management. What I mean by that is we come up with a data strategy when we are initially onboarding you to understand what kind of data we will be using for your organization. whether the data is static, whether it's dynamic. If it is dynamic data, then where do we get that data from? If it is something that we can write an API, make an API call, or go to the database and fetch the information. And if we don't have access to the database, if it's cloud, we don't have access to the database, then we do run reports to get the necessary information and feed that as input to our test case, right? So this way, we plan the test data upfront so that there is, again, minimal manual intervention required when we're executing the test, and we don't take too much of your team's time to be able to spend on data, providing us data to do the tests. Okay. The other benefit of this is we can also optimize the test. We can iterate through the test through data. For example, if you take hire process, there could be different types of hires that you would be doing, right? So you could hire full-time, part-time, exempt, non-exempt, union. So there's different types of employees that you might be hiring. So from a testing standpoint, we could actually have one automated test, and we can run your 15, 20 different types of hires through the data, right? So that gives you more coverage, but by not having to actually create multiple automated tests, right? So it gives you a lot of optimization capabilities as well to run these tests through data, right? This also supports any of your audits, internal or external audits, especially for finance customers who have to go through these audits. And all the details your auditors are usually looking for are already available on the platform. So you should be able to actually not have to spend too much time catering or working towards the audit, because if we plan for it, we have everything available in terms of the screenshots, determining what changed, what has been tested, the results, and all that are always available on the platform itself. You can also do end-to-end tests that we talked about. For example, if I take this particular test here, this is a test where we are kind of creating this whole end-to-end process of creating sales order and pick wave, right? So if you're doing this, I can actually create a dependency test case like this. So these are going to run in sequence, and I can actually run some other tests in parallel, right? So I'm orchestrating my tests in such a way that if there are any end-to-end flows that have to happen, I'm able to do that through this process, right? So if you see here, these are going to run in sequence, and these are going to run in parallel, right? This enables me to do unmonitored parallel executions without having to stop, even if there are any dependent test cases involved where I need to actually wait for output of my first test case to feed into the input to the next test case, and so on and so forth. We can use this to even do workflow validations. If you have any approval workflows that need to be validated, we can actually orchestrate it similarly to make sure that we're also validating the workflows as well. Integrations is another key aspect that we talked about. It's important to test not only your application, but your integrations, inbound, outbound integrations. So you can actually do the same, whether it's a connection to the database, or if you're trying to create any API-based integration. So you can actually do all that as part of the platform itself, so that you can do end-to-end tests, including integration, without having to do things manually. Right. So you also have some features in terms of the test sets, in terms of looking at the dashboards, per releases, what percentage passed, what percentage failed, and all. You can also schedule the tests when you want to. You can actually trigger a test either every night or every quarter, whatever schedules that you want, we can schedule it. You can also integrate it with your CI/CD process If you want to run the test, we can expose an API where you can call the API to trigger the test through your CI/CD process as well. So we've got quite a few flexibilities that you do have as part of the platform. I'm going to quickly return back to the presentation to see so how this works, right? So basically you need to just sign up for the process for starting the engagement and share the application access and documentation that you have available that our subject matter experts can review to understand how you have implemented your application, the test cases that you have. We'll go through the application to make sure that we understand your implementation, and then we will agree on the scope. So we'll request any clarifications we have, and then finalize the scope. Once the scope is finalized, then we will set up access for CloudTestr, and then we'll start the onboarding process. So that's where we are capturing and configuring the automated tests in your environment. And then once that is done, we're good to go. We can start maintaining and executing these tests. We'll share the results with you. We'll share the defect logs of issues that we find. We do initial triage of the defects. We don't just throw the defects at you to figure it out. Okay, so we'll get started. Apologies for the disruption. So how does it work, right? So you can actually sign up to the subscription of CloudTestr. And once the sign up happens, you can share the application access and the documentation that you might have. The documentation could be the test cases, it could be your SOPs or requirements, whatever gives us an understanding of how you have implemented the application, whatever customizations or configurations and personalizations that you might have done. So that enables our subject matter experts to understand the scope. Once we understand it, we will get some clarifications from you if we need to, if after we review all the documentation and the application, and then we agree on the scope, and then we start the onboarding process. We'll set you up with the CloudTestr access, and we'll start the capture and configure process of the automated tests in your environment. If it is just the business critical processes, we should be able to get you up and running in 2 weeks once we finalize the scope. If it is a larger scope in terms of a complete regression suite, then it could take about 4 to 6 weeks for us to get you up and running. Once the onboarding completes, we will get a sign off from you to make sure that the results are looking good, the documentation is looking good. And once you sign off, we are ready to execute for every time there is a release that is happening. So we can execute the update the test where there is impacts of the release. We will execute the test. We will triage the defects to make sure that they're really defects. We'll share the defect logs with you, and then retest as needed. And then we'll get the final sign off from you for that particular release execution. On top of this, we can also provide on-demand support. For example, if you find any issues that requires fixes to be done, or logging an SR with Oracle and going through that SR management process, we can also do that on-demand support for you, whether it's functional support, technical support, or any SR lifecycle management support. Right, all that we can actually provide you as part of an on-demand support. Currently, as part of this COVID-19 situation, we are providing the business critical processes service complimentary for customers for 90 days, where we are able to automate and execute these tests for you for 90 days free of charge, with no long-term contracts that you need to sign with us. After 90 days, you have the option to extend it or subscribe to an annual subscription, or if you want to continue on demand as well, we can provide that support. So if there is interest, please do reach out to us. I'll share the contact details shortly. So why customers use CloudTestr? So especially for Oracle applications, it is the only platform that has been offered on the Oracle Marketplace. We provide it as a service, platform as a service. So you get best of both worlds. You don't need to learn the tool, how it uses, but you still have access logging in and looking at the metrics, downloading the results, downloading the documentation, and all that is important for your teams. We also do automated data management. That is pretty critical in terms of successful automation implementation. We are able to onboard most of the customers within 4 to 6 weeks, and less than that if it is just business critical processes, and then execute these tests under 5 days so that you have enough time to take care of other things. Data security is another aspect that we ensure that we don't have access to PII data. We'll work with you to ensure that. We also have automated change management, so you don't have to read release notes and figure out. We do that, and we provide an impact analysis report for you. We also perform auto health checks, not just functional testing, end-to-end testing and stuff, but we'll also make sure that there are no process slowdowns or any security breakdowns that are happening. We auto-generate documentation, so your documentation never goes stale. It can also double as your training documents. Your results files are pretty detailed, so your users, though they're not executing the test, they should be able to look at the screens and the results to feel comfortable that everything is looking good to sign off. Integrations are also supported, and last but not the least, audit support, especially for finance applications. You can actually leverage the platform itself from an audit support standpoint. We have our contact information. If you want to get more details about our COVID-19 support that we're providing to businesses, you could just go to this link, and you can see how it works. We also have FAQs in there. We also have some of the key business processes that the initial set of business processes that were put together that could be included as part of the service. We also have the cloud marketplace link here if you want to go come through that route, or you can reach out to me or Sahiti from a partnership standpoint. We can open it up for questions if there are any questions.
Hey, Lavanya, there's nothing in the Q&A. We have one attendee who was able to rejoin. I'm not sure if Brendan has any questions, but I do know. Can you maybe explain a little bit? Does this only work for cloud applications? You know, what is the limitation there?
No, so it does support cloud applications, on-prem systems or custom applications. So it is an enterprise platform that supports different types of applications and technology stacks. So we can support different types of applications.
So Brandon is on. He actually did ask a question. It says he's going to be asked about custom forms. Brandon, maybe can you provide a little more detail in terms of what sort of functionality you're looking for in regards when it comes to custom forms? So, Lavanya, does CloudTestr handle? They have. It looks like Brandon's company has a lot of custom forms. He wants to know if it works with them, the transition and the validation of them.
Yes, it does work with custom forms, Brandon. We should be able to support validations of it. So if maybe we can have a separate call to go through some more details on that after this.
I don't see anything in the chat. But Brandon, thank you for rejoining. We do apologize for the technical malfunction there and the abrupt ending of the presentation in the middle. I know, okay. Lavanya, one question that we see normally is, who does the actual maintenance of the scripts and execution of the scripts? Is it the clients do that, or is that handled by the CloudTestr team?
So the model that is most commonly used by customers is the as a service model, where we take care of the maintenance and execution. But we do have options to provide a self-service maintenance and execution with some training, which usually don't recommend for cloud customers, but it's something that on-prem customers can leverage that self-service option as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Brandon, do you have any other questions? So Brandon doesn't have any additional questions. Brandon, I guess we'll be in contact to see if we can maybe set up a more individualized presentation for you to answer any additional questions that your colleagues may have regarding the platform. So I believe one of our members of the marketing or sales teams will be in contact. Okay. Lavanya, that's it. There's no further questions.
All right. Thanks. Thanks,
okay.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And apologies again.
Bye.